It's time to chill out and get ready for a mediocre Q&A live stream. If you're old enough, grab yourself your favorite adult beverage, and if you're not, stick with apple juice. Put your feet up and relax. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. And now let's cue up the intro music. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you guys are all doing well. I'm doing good over here myself. Just another Monday, right? Luckily, I was able to make it to the actual show today. It's been kind of busy lately. Been a little difficult to make it to everything that I want to make it to. It's kind of crazy. But, you know, I try as best as I can. But one of the things that I kind of told myself I was going to do at the beginning of the year was I was going to prioritize my life over the videos and, you know, try to focus a little bit more on home life. And I think I've been doing that, but what I've basically been doing is given the opportunity, if something comes up, I'm trying to put like maybe posting a video on pause or, you know, doing a live stream and put it on pause just to be able to take some time and hang out with the family and just relax, because I felt that last year I was like super swamped and of course, I love making the videos and I'll never stop doing that. But I've just been trying to put, you know, myself just a little bit higher on the pedestal just to make sure that, you know, I focus on what's important too. And that's the family, right? So, but yeah, today was a good day, Mike B. So family first. That's right. I'm trying to make family first. I'm going to be honest with you guys, though. I struggle. I really do, because I have a hyper obsessive, like, focus when I you know, like when I get interested in something, you know, I just focus so in depth. And even during family time, like, you know, I'll go watch a movie, for instance, and I get so hyper focused on that I just can't hear anything else. And you know, it's kind of crazy. So yeah, I don't know. It's a issue in my head. I got all kinds of those, you know, I just keep unwrapping more and more of them. I'm sure you guys do too. But, you know, I think it is very important for us to acknowledge the fact that we are all human and we are not perfect. We all have mental issues. Joe T, thanks so much for becoming a channel supporter. That is amazing. I'm super humbled by everybody's support, whether it be just simply watching the videos or financially by becoming a channel member, you know, going to my website, hvacrvideos.com. You know, I'm super thankful for a lot of that stuff. But anyways, back to the prioritizing things. You know, I try to, you know, spend as much time, like a fair amount of time on the videos and the family stuff. So, you know, it is what it is. I'm trying to be the best person that I can be. So lots of cool topics that I want to cover tonight. I've invited a few people, like when I say I invited people, so usually my process of getting ready for the live streams is I start going through YouTube comments, start going through emails, you know, I start going through Facebook messages and trying to consolidate questions that I get repetitively, you know, like over and over, but then also that I think would be good topics to cover. Sometimes I even just follow social media posts. And when I find those, I will email those people and say, hey, I'm going to talk about this on my live stream tonight. And so that's what I call inviting people over to the stream. So I'm sure we got some of them in the chat right now. You know, there's some really good discussions in some of the Facebook groups this last week that, you know, I wanted to really chime in on because there was some really cool back and forth discussions, and not arguments, but I love these kind of discussions when people don't agree, but they're just talking to each other and they're asking questions and they're growing and they're learning. Like those are the kind of discussions that I like. And I've come across a few of them, and I want to talk about them tonight too. So let's see what else. As usual, guys, I have, if you guys have questions that you want me to cover, if you have things you want me to talk about, it is kind of difficult, but post it in the chat and put it all in caps lock. That helps me to be able to see it, okay? But oftentimes there's so much going on in here, it's hard for me to catch up with them. So if I miss your guys' questions, feel free to send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com, okay? But remember, if you guys have questions or things you want me to talk about, put them in caps lock in the chat, okay? Bose Gaming, thanks again. Awesome, man. Thanks so much for becoming a channel supporter. It's really awesome. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and I do see a bunch of friends in the chat, Brett Wetzel from Advanced Refrigeration Podcast, Jason Laska, Chris Anderson, Mike B, Joe T. There's a lot of people in here. It's really cool. I appreciate seeing everybody, all the supporters. And if I didn't mention your name, I'm sorry. There's a lot of you in there right now. So so there was a really interesting discussion on the school group, and I think it was yesterday, and I kind of wanted to cover it because I see this discussion in all the different social media groups that I'm in come up quite often, and there's so much misinformation out there, okay? Don't just trust what I say. Do your research, but you need to find multiple sources that validate your conclusion, okay? Going to simply the supply house and listening to what they have to tell you can sometimes be misleading, okay? And I'll explain that story here right now. So the discussion this week was about changing a line set, and that I saw yesterday. It was about changing a line set of a system that was R22 with mineral oil to a system that is 410A with polyester oil. And the question was, how do I properly clean this line set? I'm paraphrasing, and it was something along the lines of, do I use an additive? And the person was skeptical about using an additive. And the responses were really interesting because a lot of the responses were change the line set. You're a hack if you don't, or don't worry about it, or add an acid flush, or, you know, all these different things. And while there's truth in some of those, there is no reason to have to change a line set specifically based on the fact that you're changing the refrigerant or it has different oil. And I'm being careful when I say that, because if you're changing to, and we need different line sizes for oil return and stuff, that's one thing. But the point I'm trying to make right now is just because you had mineral oil and you're changing over to polyester oil does not necessarily mean that you have to change the line set, okay? So there's a lot of other reasons why you might have to change the line set. Maybe it's just practical to think there's going to be a leak or proper refrigerant velocity or whatever. Those are all valid reasons. But the reason that simply because you're changing from one oil to another does not necessarily mean that you have to change the line set, okay? Clean the line set out as much as possible, all right? Now, personally, I'm not an expert in this, but personally, I don't like using additives. Never have. Well, no, I take that back. I did in the beginning of my career use additives all the time. But I personally don't like using additives. I don't like adding flushes. I personally have come to the conclusion that if it didn't come in the compressor from the factory, I'm not going to add it to the system. I understand oil changes, but I'm saying additives, okay? And what a lot of people out there don't understand is how difficult it is. So extremely difficult and so extremely expensive to get something approved by Copeland to be used in one of their compressors, okay? For Copeland to stamp on something to say that it is completely approved, you have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. It's insane, okay? Most people don't want to spend that money and they make false claims. Now, there's other manufacturers besides Copeland, but if you are changing just simply the oil, you want to try to get as much of that oil out of the system as possible, okay? But polyester oil and mineral oil mixing is not going to make the system explode. Now, of course, you don't want to have large amounts of oil, but if you had trace amounts of mineral oil and you're putting it to polyester oil, it's not a big deal, okay? There's so much overhype about that. Same thing with refrigerant gauges, okay? You don't need 7 different sets of refrigerant gauges in your van just because you work with different oils, okay? That's a myth, okay? It's not what it's made out to be on the simple fact of them just mixing. Now, there's other reasons why you may not want to have or why you may want to have separate gauges, but I'm talking about oil in general, okay? So one of the biggest things is a lot of the new refrigerants do not carry the oil very well with it like mineral oil used to with R22, okay? Mineral oil traveled really well with R22. It doesn't do so well with some of the newer refrigerants, mineral oil doesn't really travel with the refrigerant very well. Therefore, you don't get lubrication, proper lubrication, and or if the oil was to leave the compressor, it has a hard time coming back to the compressor, okay? So with that being said, you want to try to use the proper oil with the newer refrigerants for sure, okay? You have, let's just use 407C, for example. A lot of different manufacturers make that. It works with polyester oil. Now, yes, I know there's some people out there that say, yeah, I've used it with mineral oil for years and it works fine. I'm sure that there's some certain circumstances where it will work, but you want to make sure you try to follow OEM manufacturers' specifications as much as possible, okay? So if you're using any of the newer refrigerants, the HFOs, I think is what they are. Yeah, HFO. You know, you want to make sure that you're using the proper oil. Now, there's several different, or HFCs, there you go. There's several different additive manufacturers that have a lot of misleading information, okay? Any additive, leak detector fluid or leak sealer, dye, all these different things. They have a lot of misleading information on the packaging. Almost every one of them does it. And they'll have some phrasing on there that says OEM approved or manufacturer approved, okay? That is such a stupid term, and it is so misleading. What manufacturer approved it? Okay, just because it's an OEM, that doesn't mean it was an air conditioner company. It could that's such a general, thing. It doesn't make sense. Okay, if they wanted to tell you that Copeland approved it, then they would put Copeland approved on there. But another interesting thing about Copeland approvals too. Okay, and this goes for all other manufacturers too. Just because Copeland approves an oil or a refrigerant or whatever for a certain application does not mean it's a blanket approval all the way across the board. It may be approved for use in a chiller, right? But it's not approved for use in ultra low temps or medium temps, okay? So don't let the manufacturers mislead us, and don't let misinformation spread on the internet. If it sounds too good to be true, it's not true. Okay, if these manufacturers say you don't need to do these oil changes or this kind of stuff, be very leery of that. Okay, always lean on the manufacturer of the compressor to find out what they approve to be in their compressor, because they're looking out for their best interests. They want their product to succeed, so they're the person to trust when it comes to adding weird additives and different things to your systems. Let me see what we got going on in the chat real quick. And, I'm just looking to see what I missed in here. Not seeing anything as of yet that's too important. Okay, cool. All right, cool. Right on. So yeah, just be cautious about that. But yes, you don't necessarily have to just change the line set because you're changing the refrigerant or the oil. There's a lot of variables that would make you change the line set. Like I started out with, refrigerant velocity, proper BTUs and different things like that. Okay. But just on the fact of the oil, you do not necessarily have to change the line set. Now, I'm not going out there saying I never change line sets. Whenever possible, I change a line set, but I don't do it because of the oil. I typically do it because it's installed in a crappy condition and it's very corroded or pitted, and it's going to lead to a failure soon. And it's easier when you're doing an installation to change a line set. So I'll usually bring that to the customer and let them make that decision, but I'm not doing it simply because we're changing the oils over. Okay. Now, if you have large traps, places where there could be oil trap, yes, that could become a problem. So in general terms, you don't have to do it just because. Now, if you're changing the line set because there's weird traps in it that you can't access and different stuff like that, that totally makes sense. Okay. So just be cautious about OEM approved, because that is such a misleading claim, such a misleading. So Mike had emailed me today, and he asked me about, and Mike is what sounds to be a homeowner, and that's fine. I have no problem answering homeowner questions. I have no problem answering business owner questions whenever possible. So Mike emailed me with a really cool, good question, Mike, and I'm going to have some opinions about this, and you can go with this, okay? So Mike has a portable air conditioner, you know, the type that is on wheels and it has a little hose that you push out a window, okay? And he's starting to notice that he's getting a really musty smell coming out of the air conditioner. That is a very, very common thing, Mike, okay? What is actually happening is you more than likely have bacteria growth inside of there. That bacteria growth is having a chemical reaction, and that's the smell you're getting. Mildew, different things like that, okay? So now, here's the biggest thing, okay? Number one, why do you have that bacterial growth, okay? If you have that bacterial growth, there's some sort of conditions that are leading to that. Unhealthy air, typically, or mold, or, you know, that kind of stuff somewhere else in the house, and it's traveling and building up in cool, damp places, okay? So you want to investigate why that's even there in the first place. Is it just crappy air? Who knows, okay? The next thing is once you have that bacteria buildup, in air conditioning ducts, typically certain ones, if they're metal ducts, it can be cleaned sometimes, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes it can be cleaned and taken care of. But when it comes to a portable air conditioner or a window air conditioner, if you've ever taken a window air conditioner apart or a portable air conditioner apart, obviously they're made to be very inexpensive, okay? They want them to be super effective. And one of the ways that they make them very inexpensive, the 98 DeVille, thank you very much for that super chat. Please smash the thumbs up button, guys. So one of the ways that these manufacturers of these portable air conditioners and these window air conditioners save money is by reducing the weight and using less material. So they use styrofoam oftentimes as a duct or a baffle or a way to channel air to certain areas inside the window or the portable air conditioner. Styrofoam is a very porous material, and if you get bacteria buildup, mold, and different things inside of styrofoam, it can be difficult to clean, okay? So in a perfect world, if you ask me the question, how do you get rid of that smell? How do you can try to clean your air conditioner, but the best way, in all honesty, is you're probably going to have to get rid of the air conditioner, okay? If it's one of those portable ones, because that bacteria is going to be almost impossible to make completely disappear with the porous styrofoams that they use to channel the air in those units, okay? And you need to solve whatever the air quality issue is, so that way you don't have it continuing to build. And if you have it building there, remember the bacteria and the mold and different things, they travel to cool, damp places, okay? So it's just going to where it can thrive and multiply, and that's in the cool, damp place, but it's coming from somewhere else. You're breathing that air in. You want to eliminate that problem, okay? Now, there is chemical cleaners out there, and you are not in the United States is what he told me, but in the United States, Refrigeration Technologies makes some really great chemicals that can help to kill and break down bacteria and different things like that. In the European countries, I'm sorry, I don't know any of the brands, but just look up air conditioning cleaners. You know, I'm sure you can find them, local suppliers, different things like that, okay? So as far as a small portable air conditioner, I mean, you know, you're going to go through all kinds of crazy stuff. You're better off getting rid of it, solving the air quality issue, than using it again, in my opinion, okay? So hopefully that answers your question for you, bud. I'll check out the chat here in just a second. Let me cross off some questions. I have a list in front of me, and I usually go over everything, and I just want to make sure I get to... Okay, I already asked that question too. Let me look at the chat, see what I'm missing in here. Let me see what we got. Hamilton Mechanical, yes, he said they're not made to be taken apart. That is absolutely true. Window air conditioners and portable air conditioners, they're simply not made to be taken apart. So they're meant to be thrown away. Mario Perez asks, in a restaurant, how would you check building pressure, AC, on or off? Oh, good question, Mario. Okay, so let's I'm not going to give you the answer. I'm going to lead you to the answer, okay? So think of a building as a paper bag. Simplest forms, okay? You have a paper bag, you put it over your mouth, you get it tight, and you inhale. The bag starts to collapse. You inhale enough, if your lungs can pull in that much oxygen, and air, we should call it, not necessarily oxygen, then the bag will collapse completely, okay? But let's do the same experiment if you cut a small hole in the bag. As you start to inhale, it's gonna start to ripple a little bit, but less air's it's gonna take longer to collapse. And then once you make the hole big enough, the air will pass right through the bag. The building as a whole is a system, okay? The exhaust fans, the air conditioning, they all work together, okay? The ventilation too, okay? So they all work together. So if you're testing air balance, you want your indoor blower motors to be on. You want your air conditioners to be in occupied mode. You want your outdoor air dampers or economizer dampers to be in their normal operating position, so that way you can test the true building balance, okay? Then you can start adjusting economizers close to test different things, but you do want your air conditioners moving air, okay? Oftentimes, most air conditioners, especially in commercial restaurant settings, they pull air from outside into the building through the air conditioners too, along with pulling it in through the makeup air. So you want all that stuff on and running. Now, you don't necessarily have to have the cooling running per se, or the heating running per se, but you want the indoor fans running, and you want the outside air dampers in their normal operating positions. You want every exhaust fan running, and you want all the building doors shut, so that way you can get a baseline of your air balance and you can adjust accordingly. So hopefully that answers your question for you, bud. Let's see. How would you solve condensation issues in a restaurant, specifically on the vents? Mr. Green, I would start addressing why you're having condensation. Is it condensation that's making its way from the drain pan up on the roof? Is it condensation simply because of the dew point and the temperature of the air? Okay, because, you know, you could be condensating or condensing moisture on your vents simply because of building conditions too. Okay, so it really depends on what the humidity is in the building and what temperature the air is coming out of the ducts. That's where you're really going to start to want to pay attention to if it's just air that's condensing on the vents. Okay, now if it's condensation on the roof, of course, or, you know, from a drain pan, then yeah, you want to clean that out, blow it out, whatever, get it draining properly. Is it safe to wash RTU coils while the unit is running with water? No, it is absolutely 100% not safe to wash condenser coils while equipment is energized and or running. No, there's no way that I can tell you that it's safe, okay? Will, thank you for continuing to be a supporter. You've been a supporter for a long time, Will. I appreciate you, bud. I don't know why it says 1 month, but anyways, no, you do not want to wash air conditioners with water running, okay? Just because the fan's not running does not mean there's not electricity running in those wires. Oftentimes on air conditioning equipment, we will have single phase motors that have one leg of power always, going to the motor, okay? So they will only break one leg sometimes depending on the equipment. So you have a potential of getting electrocuted. So no, do not wash equipment with water running. Let's see what else we got going on here. Have I heard of compressors that operate at hotter temperatures as it gets older? Frank JF Guan. Well, I mean, yeah, that's a pretty simple answer, and that's yes. As compressors typically will get older, yes, they will tend to start to run hotter, especially as the efficiency of the equipment drops off. The life of the compressor as it starts to break in. Of course, temperatures will potentially start to go up, but there will be repercussions to those temperatures that start to go up for sure. Okay. Let me see. Yeah, we should come up with chips, huh, guys? For the supporters, we should come up with like, I've been a supporter for this many years or something like that, or this many months. We should do that. That'd be pretty cool. Does superheat affect overall performance? You have high superheat. Bacon bits. Let's think about what's happening when you have high superheat versus lower superheat. Okay. Superheat in general, okay, is one of the main things. The temperature of the refrigerant coming back is one of the main things that is going to help to cool the compressor off. That way the windings don't overheat and potentially cause a catastrophic damage, okay? So the lower the superheat, the colder the gas coming back to the compressor. The higher the superheat, the higher temperature of gas coming back to the compressor, okay? So that's very important that we control the level of superheat so that way we protect our compressor. And yes, it will completely protect overall performance. The compressor is the lifeblood, the heart of the system. If the compressor's not working, the system's not working, okay? Do I like to use one brand of vacuum pump oil oil, or have I not noticed a difference between brands? Perez FL. Me personally, I have not noticed a difference between vacuum pump oil brands. Now, I'm sure Field Piece, has a reason why they want you to use their vacuum pump oil, but I have used other vacuum pump oil in their vacuum pumps for years. And there's no specific information saying that you have to use just theirs, okay? But everybody's going to do something different to their oil to make it different than the other guy's oil. Me personally, I use what I get at my local supply house. They happen to have the JB vacuum pump oil, so I just grabbed those. And I really appreciate that the JB oil comes in the tiny little containers, so that way for my Field Piece pump it barely takes any oil, so it really makes it efficient to not have to buy a giant quart, and go through it completely. So I wanted to talk about something. We are not perfect. I am not perfect, nor will I ever be perfect. I'm not claiming to be anything of the sort. Okay. The best that I can do, the best that you can do, is try your hardest to be perfect, but also understand you're never going to achieve perfection. I mean, there's always going to be flaws. We're humans. That's what we do. We are flawed. Okay. But in my opinion, it's how we overcome those flaws, or at least try to not make the same mistakes, so that we don't have those issues. Okay. So I am not perfect, but I can only try to do my best. Okay. I think that's important with anything in life, is to assume that. It's taken me a long time. When I was a teenager, I thought I was perfect. Okay. I knew, I was working with my dad at the time, or I was starting to work with him, and I knew how to run his company. I knew what he needed to do to make it operate better. But boy, was I humbled when I got older and got experience and learned how hard it was to run a business. And now I'm running more than I ever have, and it's overwhelming, right? And I realized that I once thought I was perfect, but I wasn't, okay? I wasn't at all. Let's see what else. Radical Gaming Nerd, thank you so very much for continuing to be a supporter, man. That is awesome. Ike, I really appreciate you, bud. You are amazing. Ike has always been a good friend of mine. Ike also made a Discord server for me. Honestly, I don't go to the Discord server very often. I wish I had more time to do so, but there's a good group of people in that Discord server. So if you guys are interested in the Discord server, I always screw this up, so I'm not going to do this the wrong way. Shoot me an email. Put Discord in the title, and I'll make sure to get you the link, because it is a private server. You do have to go through an acceptance process. So shoot me an email, type Discord in the subject line, and I'll make sure to get you the proper Discord link if any of you are interested in checking it out. It's basically just a giant, heavily moderated chat room where people get to talk about different things. And it's not just specifically HVAC. There's different rooms and different things in there. So it's a pretty cool little thing. It's just hard for me to focus anything more on it. But definitely shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com, and I'll get you a link to that Discord server, okay? All right, let me see. All right. Lately, I've been doing this a little bit more and more, and I don't want people to think that I'm above anybody or anything like that. But with my customers, and I think I've been expressing more in my videos too about it, actually, I'm going to step that back and come back to that. Something that I have been doing more and more in my videos, and I will continue to do because it does make me feel like a better person, is to be real, okay? Showing more real stuff, okay? Yes, I know this is an HVAC channel, but you know what? This is more than an HVAC channel. And the message that I want to get out to people is that I'm a person that happens to work in HVAC. So if people are following me, they're going to get a little bit about me too. So yes, I will post occasionally on my social media platforms that I'm going out to dinner with my family, and I'm amazed that I actually got to have lunch. This last weekend, I'm going to show more emotion and different things like that for sure. And that's just going to continue to happen. So no offense if you don't want that kind of content. If you strictly want just boom, 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 education, no humility, no anything, I'm sure there's many other platforms that are amazing. It's just not where I'm going. I try to show as much about me as possible. Radical Gaming Nerd, thanks so much for that super chat. I will get to that question here in a second. So this last weekend, I was able to, my youngest daughter went and stayed at a friend's house for a sleepover. And so it was my teenage daughter and my wife and myself. And my wife and myself decided we wanted to go to lunch, Actually, we wanted to go to we wanted to go to lunch, yeah. And so we had asked my daughter, and normally my teenager says no because she's always studying and doing different stuff. So, but she actually said yes. So for me, it was a milestone because I got to go out to lunch with my teenager. It's funny, as they get older and older, they get further and further away. And then on top of that, she even went to a baseball game with me that night. Like that was a dad win right there. So my wife, my teenage daughter, and myself got to go to a baseball game and out to lunch. So it's the little things that make it tolerable, right? Because I enjoy HVAC, but I also enjoy my family. So the little things just really do help out, okay? So I'm going to continue to show that stuff. If you guys have problems, no offense, move on. It's all good, okay? What are the pros and cons of an apprenticeship versus a trade college? You're at a block at which you're questioning which one should you do. Okay, so I cannot 100% answer that question for you, but I'm going to give you some feedback on it, okay? Because it really depends on your needs and the education and the value you would get from either choice, okay? Assuming from the type of your question you have an apprenticeship, I'm assuming with a union is what you mean. And then you have the trade school route, okay? Because I have an apprentice working under me, but I'm not a union person. But typically the apprenticeship process is kind of thought of as just a union thing, okay? So an apprenticeship in general, in my opinion, is a very important thing, and I think should coincide with trade college, okay? Now, obviously, trade colleges can be good and bad too, depending on the school, so you need to read the reviews. So I hate to make your question even harder to answer, but you need to do some more research to find out which one better fits you. Now, if you're going into a union job, typically, you go into an apprenticeship program where you work and you go to school simultaneously, and you agree to a pretty good pay level while you're going to school. Okay. So that sounds like a pretty good deal if the unions are strong in your area, and that's the route you want to go. Or you go to trade school. Now there's also, and you may have been talking about this too, there could just be on the job training. And I think on the job training is good, but I think on the job training should also include you going to night school. That's how I have done it in the past with people. I've put people through school because I hired them with no experience. And what I would typically do is they would work a full day with me, and then I would pay, well, let me say this. Then they would go to night school 2 to 3 days a week, and they would learn while they were at school, night school. Now, and then they would come back to work the next day. That was a really good way that we did it because they get fundamentals and different explanations on how things work. For me, I'm the type of person that I need multiple sources to learn. So I hear a little bit from here, a little bit from here, and then all of a sudden this right here puts it together and it clicks. Or the next time it could be this or this. So I like multiple sources of knowledge. So I don't have the answer for you, bud. But on the job training, no matter what you go, should be part of your education, should be part of your process and or a proper apprenticeship. Okay. So I hope I didn't confuse the heck out of you on that one. Jermaine G, thank you so very much for that super chat. That was very amazing. I'm very humbled by that. Okay. Oxnard Shores 805. Thank you very, very much, man. If you move to Riverside, can you work for me? Oxnard Shores, let's talk, man. Send me an email, okay? I'm not going to commit to anything, but I'd be willing to talk for sure. So let's see what else we got in here. I'm probably missing a lot in the chat, guys. If I miss your stuff, shoot me an email, hvacrvideos@gmail.com. So anyways, with prioritizing things, what I started out that little rant that I went off on was I have been showing a lot more of myself in my videos and also showing my frustrations in hopes that you guys learn from them, whether it be good or bad, okay? And I have been expressing frustration at some of my customers, okay? Now, yes, I know I should never let my customers see me being frustrated with them. I know that it's not professional to show that stuff, right? I get it. And I get it that my customer can watch these videos and potentially see it on a video. But at the same time, maybe you're not my customer and maybe you can learn from this too. So I'm very calculated about what I do share about frustrations and different things. I typically share a frustration when I think it might be shared by many people or when I think someone might learn something from that frustration. Okay. So yes, I am going to continue to show frustrations and show when I'm fed up with a customer or when I decide, you know what, I'll say in a video remark like, hey, I'm not coming back out here this weekend because you're not approving this particular thing now, you know, kind of like a threat. Like if this goes down again, I'm not coming out until Monday, you know, like, yes, I will do that sometimes. Now it's not something that I'm going to do all the time. And I'm also going to tell you guys as employees of companies, that's never something you want to do. I'm the owner. I can make those decisions. Okay. You always want to lead on management or the owner of the company to make big decisions on when you're going to tell a customer a certain thing or not. Okay. I do want to kind of cover real quick, something I covered in my recent video about quality control. It is happening everywhere, the lack thereof quality control. Okay. That was social media. People were talking about it on social media a lot lately. And then I made a video showing exhaust fans that weren't put together properly. It's pretty stupid what they were missing, but it's happening more and more. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to get any better. It's probably going to get worse before it starts to get better. Okay. So that just means that, guess what? And while it frustrates me, that means that even I am learning from this, right? The next time I bid exhaust fans, I'm going to put a little extra money in there, because I know that I'm going to have to fix some extra things. If you're quoting things, not assuming that you're going to have to do a proper startup and test every set screw and every wire connection, right? Well, maybe we need to start quoting appropriately to be able to do that. Okay. Remember, there's a reason why we have startup technicians. Okay. Especially when you get into heavy commercial industrial stuff, you will have equipment installed, and then it'll sit there for a week while it's waiting for a startup technician that is very qualified in what he knows, that particular piece of equipment. Oftentimes they will work specifically for the manufacturer of that equipment, and they will come out and do a manufacturer startup where they test every component. They test wire connections. They test to make sure that they didn't have any quality control issues. Okay. We don't see that on the smaller level as much, very often, but we're going to have to start quoting for that kind of quality control on our end. If we're selling or installing and starting up equipment, we're going to have to spend more time. So I learned that this has been happening, 2-3 times in the last couple months. It's time for me to start appropriately quoting for these issues, so that way I can fix them and I'm not losing money on my install, right? See what I'm missing? Refrigeration Technologies yellow coil cleaner is microchannel safe. Yes, it is. I'm assuming someone is asking about that. Yes, Refrigeration Technologies is, or the yellow Venom pack. Okay. I should probably have some of those chemicals in here, but the yellow Venom pack is microchannel aluminum safe. Okay. Let's just step back to the process that happens when you put the blue coil cleaner on a condenser coil. Okay. The blue coil cleaner made by several different brands. You know the smell, you know what it does. Refrigeration Technologies even makes one. They call it brightener. And that's exactly what it is. Okay. We all use it as a cleaner, but it's technically a brightener. And the reason why it's a brightener is because of the chemical reaction that the liquid in the coil cleaner, right, has with the metals. Okay. The typical blue cleaners are not aluminum safe. And even on steel condensers, they're not necessarily safe. Now on aluminum, the effect that happens when you take that blue brightener cleaner and you spray it on the coil and it foams up, and then instantly that coil is shiny. Well, it didn't clean as much as it stripped. Okay. That cleaner has a chemical reaction and it etches the coil. It takes the top layer of the coil off. Okay. Let's step back. The Statue of Liberty is green, right? But the Statue of Liberty actually isn't green. The Statue of Liberty is copper. Okay. But it's that green color because of the chemical reaction that's happening between the salt in the water around it and the copper. Okay. It's a chemical reaction. When I was a kid, I used to take ketchup. Someone told me if you took ketchup and you put it on a penny and you came back a couple hours later and wiped the ketchup off, the penny would be all clean and shiny. It's not that it's clean. It's that it ate the top layer of the penny off. The acids, the vinegars in the ketchup actually eat away at the top layer of the penny. Okay. So be cautious about the chemicals that you use. The yellow Venom pack from Refrigeration Technologies is aluminum safe. It is microchannel safe. It's not going to eat away at the coil. The only real issues you're going to have with the yellow cleaner is if you put too much of it and you don't wash it off, it's going to create a bubble party. Why? Because it's soap and water. Okay. But it's just a special mixture of soap that has a great reaction with greases and dirts and different things. Okay. But it's not going to eat the coil away. So always be cautious. But yeah, the yellow Venom pack is a great choice for cleaning microchannels. Your supply house does not carry refrigeration technologies other than the Viper in the can. Might be. I have the same issue because one of my main refrigeration supply houses hasn't been carrying it. So you know what? As a company, I've been buying it from TrueTech Tools because TrueTech Tools gives you free shipping over like a certain amount. So when you buy in bulk and buy a bunch of the cleaner, 2-3 cases at a time, I mean, you know, then it's free shipping most of the time. So check it out, man. I buy a lot from TrueTech Tools. If you do go to TrueTech Tools, do me a favor, use my offer code Big Picture. You'll get an 8% discount. I get a small commission. It helps to support the channel. That's at TrueTechTools.com. Let me see what else we got going on here. How can you prevent grease buildup on a condenser when there's an exhaust fan next to it? Mr. Green, you really can't. That's a very stupid installation place for an exhaust fan. I have several of them out there where exhaust fans are right next to them and the ACs are microchannel condensers, and it's just a pain in the butt to keep them clean. It just really is. Sometimes you can install baffles and different things, but inevitably that grease is going to make it there. Let's see. You're using ketchup as a coil brightener now. See, there you go. Brett, you better not be making any videos using ketchup as a coil cleaner, man, okay? That wouldn't be nice, stealing my cool ideas like that. Hey, guess what, guys? I talked about this on the HVAC Overtime show. I don't think I've had a chance to talk about it on my channel. So all the way back at the HVACR training symposium, I was gifted some really cool tools, right? An old ray gun looking leak detector and different things like that. And it started a little something within a few of us content creators. I know Brett kind of got in on it a little bit too, but I started kind of really liking these old tools, right? So I started doing some internet research and I bought a cool air conditioning manual and like from the 1930s, and I thought it was really cool until I found the coolest tool that I've had so far. These are really, really old tools. Okay, guys, let me introduce to you my new portable current tester. This is a portable 15-pound wooden box with a leather handle that made it portable that actually broke off. So got to get that fixed. This is one of the very first, if not the first, current testers for air conditioning or for electricity. This is for measuring DC current. This is a Weston voltmeter and it measures DC current. Let's see, there is a patent date on this from 1888. That does not necessarily mean this one's from 1888. That just means the design was patented in 1888, okay? There is looks to be a calibration date on here of 1905, but this right here is a 15-pound current tester. I found it on eBay for 30 bucks, 25 bucks to be exact, and I think I paid $25 to have it shipped. I think this is one of the coolest tools that I have come across on the internet, and it has just furthered my obsession with old HVAC tools. This one right here, I don't even know if it works. I don't even know how to tell if it works. This is an awesome, in my opinion, bookshelf and whatever you want to call it thing to sit and just check out, because it is amazing. I would love to find someone that can actually refurbish this for me because it is so cool looking. See what else we got in here. See what else we got. I'm looking through the chat right now. See what else. Send that to Mr. Carlson's lab for restoration. Teddy Tiger, I have no idea who that is. Do me a favor, send me an email. I'm sure that's a content creator of some sort, and maybe we can do a collaboration or something like that. So send me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com if you have any information. Hey, and I want to address that too. You know, this channel is successful partially because of me, but partially because of you guys that are watching this channel. And as many people have done in the past, if you can help out the channel in general in any way, please, you know, share with people. If you think that it'd be cool if I did a collaboration with someone or something like that, shoot me an email. Okay. Share my information, share it with other people that you think might be interested in this content, because, you know, I have a lot of plans in the future and I'd like to get to those plans sooner where I can spend more of my time focusing on video stuff and less on my other business. But I got a lot of work to get to that point, but it would be nice to get there sooner. So, let me see what else we got here. Let's see. Joe T, you see stickers. You actually do have stickers. I just honestly, I have a bunch of them, and I just haven't had a chance to get them put up on the website. They will be eventually. They're just sitting there because I was trying to figure out how to take pictures of them. That's something I need help with too. Is just simple things like the website and stuff. So, let me see what else. No, Edward, it does not do DC frequency. Bummer. It's not that cool. Okay, it's the lower model. Okay, I'm sorry. 5-year Resi Tech. How do I self-educate, apply for a low-temp restaurant jobs? Which job title should you be shooting for? Thanks. Metal Mosh. Let me ask another one. Let me kind of lump that in, okay? I'm going to answer that with some other questions too. So, Joshua has got his first HVAC job, and he wants to know if I have any advice. All right. And then Brandon's company is going to start doing commercial service from Resi and go into like commercial restaurant kind of stuff, if I'm paraphrasing correctly. Okay. So I want to kind of cover these in general. As a technician, if you want to better yourself, period. Okay. Pay attention, know when to ask questions, and do a lot of research. Okay. Especially new people coming into the trade. You go work a full day, you learn, you pay attention, you listen. Even if you're not absorbing everything, pay attention, ask as many questions as you safely can without annoying people, right? And bothering them from keeping them from doing your work. But then also take lots of pictures if you can safely do so without getting in trouble. Government facilities, different things like that, you can't take pictures. Certain churches too, that's a whole nother thing. I almost had to go work at Scientology temple one time. That was a really interesting one. We'll have to tell that story maybe on the overtime show. But I didn't though. But anyways, when it comes to that stuff, when you work, take lots of pictures. When you go home, start researching, start writing things down, carry a notepad, take notes in your phone. When you get home, that's when you're even going to start working harder because you're going to sit down at the Google and you're going to start asking a lot of questions and doing a lot of research. Okay. That's one way you can better yourself. Let's see. Joshua, same thing with Joshua. Joshua is focus on learning more, research the heck out of everything. The only person responsible for your education, it's not your employer. It's not your teacher at school. They're not responsible for your education, right? They're not. They're giving you tools so you can learn. So you're responsible for your education. You need to take it in your hands and stop waiting. I heard my buddy Trevor Matthews at the Refrigeration Mentor podcast. He started actually Refrigeration Mentor podcast. That's right. He started a new podcast. And that was one of the things he was saying is, don't wait for someone to pay for your education, right? Now there's times when your employer might help you or something, but don't hold back because you think they should pay for it. Because guess what? When you leave that company, that knowledge is yours to keep. It's what you do with that knowledge. So it's yours. So don't be afraid to pay for education to better yourself. Because if you educate yourself, then potentially you can make more money, right? You go on to bigger, better opportunities. So hopefully I answered the questions in there. But in general, you want to make sure that you're trying to help yourself also. You should be the number one person trying to help yourself, okay? Don't play the pity games. Oh, I'm always the loser. It's always everybody else's fault. That just simply means it's your fault. If you're a person that is saying, oh, my life sucks, this always happens, you're bringing that on yourself, okay? Get a positive mindset, change things, make yourself better. The first thing I do whenever I get into a disagreement with someone is I always reflect on myself. Make sure, check myself. Am I in the wrong here? Always reflect on myself first. Always look at myself first and try to better myself from that point. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys, okay? In a recent video, someone had asked me when I was dealing with the exhaust fans, how come we didn't have backdraft dampers in the exhaust fans, okay? I work in restaurants, typically in grease situation. The only kind of damper you might see in the ductwork is going to be a fire damper. You have to understand that exhaust fans that are moving grease through grease ducts, they have to be cleaned on a regular basis. So a simple backdraft damper typically isn't going to happen, or it's going to be a very difficult thing to clean, okay? I understand the concept of a backdraft damper, and while it seems like a great idea, maybe there is something, but I don't know of much of a backdraft damper that can be operated properly and move up and down in a greasy situation. It's not a very common thing. I think you'd be more apt to see some sort of heating system, to try to compensate for cold air coming in through the ductwork or something like that in the off cycle. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question a little bit. I will kind of break the internet when it comes to some of my European viewers, and yes, I did purchase a crap ton of Wago 221 connectors. I'm testing them out. We'll see how it goes, okay? Maybe you'll start seeing me use Wago connectors a little bit more in my videos. I know I have been getting grief from my European viewers for so many years, and while I will agree that if installed correctly, a wire nut, in my opinion, will last equally as long, if not longer, than a Wago connector, I still do like the idea of Wago connectors, and like my first use of them the other day was actually pretty cool. I'm not going to elaborate too much, but I was safely able to work on something that should have probably been de-energized. Let's just say that, okay? So I'm not going to go anymore because I probably shouldn't talk about that. Is a suction P-trap always necessary on a refrigeration system? No. Nope. Not always necessary. Is it a good idea in most situations? Yeah. But any more piping than what was designed, when you make piping too long, when you go in certain directions, when you bend, when you 90, when you make a P-trap return, every bit of movement that the refrigerant has to do in the piping is a restriction in itself, okay? So the more 90s, the more P-traps, the more bends you put into equipment, the less or the harder the compressor has to fight to get that refrigerant to move through that system at the proper velocity to let heat transfer happen, okay? So is a P-trap always necessary? No. Does it hurt in most situations? No. Depending on the location of the equipment. The main purpose of a suction line P-trap or an inverted trap up on the roof is simply for oil transportation, okay? A P-trap speeds up refrigerant velocity as it's going through the P-trap, and the theory is that any trapped oil, the particles of oil, would travel with the refrigerant, and the increased velocity would help to carry that oil up to the roof, okay? But if you have a compressor below the evaporator, it's not necessary all the time to have a P-trap unless you have a high line set rise, okay? Typically, you're going to size your refrigerant piping and put the appropriate traps dependent on the length of the line set and the amount of 90s and turns you have to do. So no, you do not always have to have a P-trap. No, it is not always required on a walk-in cooler. Do I install a P-trap more than I need to? Yes. I know that half the installations I do, half the walk-ins that I do, don't need a P-trap. But in those weird, odd circumstances, what's it going to hurt to have a single P-trap on a 50-foot line set run? For the most part, it's not going to hurt much. So I put them in as much as possible. Let's see what we got going on in here. What else do we got? Look at my buddy Trevor. There you go. Trevor from Refrigeration Mentors in here. Trevor, I actually just finished Trevor's Compressor Masterclass, and I have to say it was a really, really awesome class. So it was 4 weeks, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Trevor. It's a 4-week class. It's about 2.5 to 3 hour sessions, depending on how many questions we ask. And that's the cool thing is Trevor's in there answering questions, you know. But it was a great class. I personally learned a lot. Okay. I really did learn a lot. And it was an online version. So Saturday mornings, go on the computer a couple hours early in the morning, drink my coffee, you know, munch on my breakfast, whatever, and have live interaction. Really good class. So definitely check out Trevor's Compressor Masterclass. I'm sure you can find everything at refrigerationmentor.com. Let's see what else we got in here. Am I supposed to reduce one line size on a vertical rise? Not necessarily on every vertical rise, Mario Perez, but in certain situations, you might, if you have to reduce a line size, they typically say if you're going up to a compressor that you want to reduce it on the rise, okay? But you don't always have to reduce it, but it's best if it's requiring in the certain situations, yeah, you might want to reduce it on the rise for sure. But you don't have to always, no. And it's not just like a always reduce one line size. No, it really depends on the length, and you need to do the research and find out what kind of piping. Hey, guess what? I'm going to ask you guys a question, and tell me in the chat right now, honestly, when you are installing a residential air conditioner, okay, let's make this simple. If you're installing a residential air conditioner, and the evaporator has one line size and the condenser has one line size, right? Different sizes is what I'm saying. Which one do you trust? Which one determines what size the line should be? Answer in the chat. Let me know. On a residential install, if your condenser has different line sizes than the evaporator, which one determines the actual line set size that you're going to do? Which one? Tell me in the chat. What do you guys think? There's no wrong answer because we can all learn from this, okay? So there's no wrong answer. Anybody, type it in the chat. What determines our refrigerant line size? The condenser, the evaporator, or something else? Weaver Maintenance says, read the manual. That's right. Read the manual. Okay, that does tell you. But what determines the line size? Okay, Ike says the condenser. Mark says the outdoor unit. Okay. Mark Lynn, the condenser. Luis 503, the evaporator. These are a lot of good answers. Okay. And I'm sure we all have different reasons as to why we think our answer is correct. But the true answer is the refrigeration line size is determined by the line set length, by the refrigerant velocity that's needed to move through it. We need to lean on the manufacturer. If we have a bigger line set out at the condenser, it does not necessarily mean we need to go with that big line set. If we have a smaller line set in the evaporator, that does not necessarily mean that we need to go with that line size. The line size is dependent on the length, the application. That's what determines it. Okay. For many years, I thought too that, well, if the condenser has 7/8 3/8 and the evaporator has 5/8 3/8, well, I'm going to use 7/8 because that's the right size. That's not necessarily the right size. It depends on the velocity of the refrigerant traveling through. So the line set is determined, depending on those situations. Now, residential manufacturers, if you read their manuals, oftentimes they will tell you what size lines they want you to install with this particular equipment matchup. Very important, because you can use one condenser with 3 or 4 different size evaporators, depending on the situation. Maybe it's variable speed. Who knows? Okay. So you always want to lean on the manufacturer, but they're going to come to their conclusions or you need to figure it out yourself. You're going to come to your conclusions and you're going to do a calculation based on the length of the line set, the amount of turns, the total equivalent length, which is basically the total length, including the calculated lengths of 90s and elbows and different things. Okay. So guess what? I didn't know that for the longest time either. So I'm not dissing anybody. I applaud everybody that answered in the chat. Thank you very much for answering that. Don't be afraid to be wrong. Don't ever be afraid to be wrong, because if you're wrong, that's an opportunity to grow. And what was I talking about at the very beginning of this? How you're responsible for your growth. You're responsible for your education. Okay. Better yourself, learn. Okay. We're flawed. We all make mistakes. It's how we learn from those mistakes and how we grow from them. So thank you to everybody that answered that question in the chat, wrong or right, because someone benefited from your answer in one way or another. Maybe you did, right? Don't be afraid to be wrong. That's how we grow. All right. Let me see. I like that answer. Mike B says, whatever Trevor deems necessary. John Peterson, should technicians be compensated for on-call time waiting at home? John Peterson, I'm a business owner, so I have interesting opinions on that, okay? But I'm also was a technician and an hourly employee before I was a business owner. So the business owner in me, well, of course I want to make the most amount of money, right? All that kind of stuff. But no, I mean, I'm practical. Technicians should be compensated for their time, okay? One way or another. So there's different ways of compensation. Need to pay attention to your labor laws. Labor laws are different, okay? Different states have different rules about compensation, perks, different things like that, okay? So I'm not going to go into crazy detail on my situation, but we make sure that the guys are taken care of, okay? That's the best that I can go into that without getting into too much detail. But of course, technicians always need to be compensated in one way or another. Maybe it's not always your straight hourly pay. I think that one, and I mean, of course, I want to make as much money as possible, but I know there's some techs out there that think that just because they're on call, they should get their overtime hourly pay for that time. Hey man, if you can, good for you, but that's not practical and that's not going to happen. So usually it's some sort of other compensation. Let me see what else we got. Laska saying I got a little bit of a Coke nose. It's possible. Whenever my mustache gets long, I get the Coke nose. So, What would I say to a person who is new to HVAC and wants to have a future in the career? Please hurry. We need you fast. That's what I would say. That's the first thing. All right. Hey, don't talk to anybody. Come straight to me. Let's have a conversation, right? Let's get a conversation started. Whose pun is that, right? That's Trevor's catch line right there. But what would I say to a person? I mean, this is a great trade. I genuinely love this trade. You will go far if you're interested and you have drive and you really work hard. You will go far. But understand something too, especially people that are getting into the trade right now. School does not teach you everything. Don't let the schools. That's the bummer, because there's multiple sides to a school. One of the main sides to a school is money, profit, marketing. Okay. Marketing is looking at it as a business. And are they right or wrong? I'm not going to judge, because they're a business just trying to make money. But unfortunately, we want a school to be simply about education. Okay. And obviously people need to get paid to educate and stuff. But some of the schools out there are going to market to you that you'll be trained, you'll be a qualified technician making this much money an hour when you graduate the school. You'll have this much experience. And that's all baloney. Okay. I don't care what school you go to. When you go to school and you graduate school, or you start working while you're going to school, either way, you got to put in your time. You got to get experience and work your way up. You're not going to be making journeyman wages coming straight out of school. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's some crazy people paying those kind of wages, but it's not practical to pay a new person journeyman wages. Okay. There's, of course you need to get paid for your time and you need to be able to live, but just understand, as a new guy coming in, it's going to take some time, but this can be a very fruitful career. Very rewarding. You'll get much satisfaction from fixing things if you're a person like me that just loves to solve problems. Okay. And at the same time, you can make some really good money. So, all right. Let's see. There we go. Let's get an application started. That's my new catchphrase, right? All right. Let me see what else we got in here. I already kind of answered that one. I want to talk about this a little bit. You know, with these shortages of parts, with the quality control issues and different things that we're having right now, we're going to have to step up, all right? And we're going to have to separate ourselves from the parts changers. And the cool thing is that the people watching this, the people that are watching Trevor's content, Brian's content, all the different content creators that are my friends that we all, you know, kind of huddle together. If you're watching anybody's content, you're better than the next guy that isn't. Okay. You're furthering your education and sometimes getting a little entertainment out of it too, but better yourself. Okay. Because right now, we can't just change parts anymore. We're not going to be able to just, hey, you know what? It has this bad part because the circuit board told me, so I got to order that part. Well, guess what? That part is 6 months out and they need that equipment running. So we're going to have to use our brains, right? We're going to have to think. What cartoon's that from? And we're going to have to start learning how to fix things, right? We're going to have to go a little bit beyond what, you know, the school taught us, and we're going to have to start using our knowledge to solve problems that maybe we can't get parts for in the temporary basis. So we got to get it operational. All right. We're not hacking this thing through, but we're going to do some things to make it operate. Right. If I can't get a VFD right now, it's probably going to get bypassed. We'll make sure there's some sort of motor protection still in there, of course, in the right situations. Don't do anything dangerous, but you know, if you got to bypass a VFD and they lose some efficiency, but they still keep their customers because their entire dining room would be down, hey, you got to do what you got to do to keep the customer running. And if we're trying to better ourselves by educating ourselves, by watching content and learning, hopefully we're going to be the people working, right? Because those guys that just simply do what they're told and don't have the brain power to be able to, you know, figure out a way to make this work, there's nothing for them to do when we got no parts, right? They're not just, there's no room for lemmings right now. You know, we need people that have brain power. So I did want to address in a recent video, and I can't stress it enough, that, you know, we don't want to turn on makeup air units if they have been down for a very extended period of time. Any kind of unit that is delivering air into the building, you want to be very cautious about turning it on after an extended off time. Oftentimes on makeup air units and in restaurants, the ducts can get full of dust. And if you turn it on, like you fix it, and then you turn it on in the middle of their dinner shift, you're going to ruin thousands of dollars of food because it's going to get covered in dirt when that makeup air blows all that crap out the hoods. Okay. Got to use your brains. Got to be smarter than that. So I had a comment about isomatic ice machines and how, and there's some valid points in this comment, but at the same time, I want to address a few things too. So someone watched a recent video. This is an older video on an isomatic, and I believe what he said because I didn't even really rewatch the video, but one of the things was that I always oversize my dryers, and that can be something that I need to be careful about teaching some of the younger people, because oversizing dryers does have ramifications, and there is some truth in that. Okay. And then also he had said something about a pressure control in the video that I had tried to maybe adjust or something. It's been a while since I've watched it, so I'm kind of guessing off of it, but pretty sure he was talking about the ice thickness sensor. So first off, you know, I always try to follow manufacturer's recommendations. And of course, I'm not going to tell everybody to adjust a thickness sensor to try to get the customer through in certain situations. Okay. I'm not always going to tell them that, but personally, I don't like adjusting, ice thickness switches that are like pressure control style on isomatics. I don't like adjusting, bin thermostats on Hoshizaki ice machines that are temperature thermostats, but they do have adjustment knobs. I don't like doing that, but in the end of a life of a temperature controller, of a pressure control, of a bin thermostat, just to get the customer operational, we might make some adjustments to kind of stretch the life of that temperature control or that pressure control, or right, occasionally. Typically, you don't want to start adjusting on anything until you know the reason why it's out of calibration or why it's not operating properly. So you got an expansion valve and you have way too low a superheat. Well, you don't necessarily want to go adjusting on the valve right quick. You want to make sure you have a solid column of liquid go into the valve, and you want to make sure that the sensing bulb is properly adjusted, and you want to make sure that the strainer on the inlet of the valve is clean before you start adjusting superheat. Okay. So I am flawed in that sometimes I might show things and I didn't go through all the procedures, but remember, this is not a step-by-step how-to channel. This is a window into how my brain operates. And while I try to educate while I'm explaining my thought process, sometimes I'm not always perfect. Okay. Now, about oversizing dryers, I typically 95% of the time I'm going to oversize a dryer. But yes, in all fairness, maybe I didn't address the fact that if you do oversize a liquid line filter dryer, there is going to be some sort of an issue here, right? You're adding more surface area to the system. Therefore, you theoretically will need more refrigerant in the system if you oversize the dryer by certain sizes. I mean, you know, if you put a 30 cubic inch dryer on a cap tube system, yeah, you're going to have to add an extra pound to that system because that dryer is going to hold a lot of refrigerant. Okay. If you're adding a 16 cubic inch dryer to the ice machine in question that had a 15-pound refrigerant charge, 16 cubic inch, in all practicality, it's not going to make a difference in a system that big. Okay. You're maybe losing an ounce, you know, or adding what would be the equivalent of an ounce or two of surface area to that system. But you do have a point when you said that I need to be careful, or you implied that I needed to be careful about oversizing dryers. So I am not perfect, of course. I try to address things, and I appreciate you giving me that feedback about oversizing dryers and about adjusting non-adjustable controls. I appreciate the feedback, and I will try to do better at explaining things. But you have to remember that majority of these videos are not me writing a script and coming up with things to talk about. It's the ramblings real time in my brain. You're hearing live my thought process and my troubleshooting process, so it doesn't always come out correct. I find it kind of funny too, because my daughter's been helping me with editing, and right now she's just learning, you know, step by step, little baby steps. So right now her job is captioning my videos. So she has to transcribe them basically. That's the first part of captioning them. So I do a transcription, she writes it all down, and then she converts it and types everything out. And I notice that when she types that stuff out, that sometimes my phrases, I don't have complete sentences. But again, it's not a script. It's the way my brain is talking. I don't talk in perfect English and perfect grammar. Oftentimes I say things that don't make any sense at all. And it's kind of funny when I watch my videos and I see the captions and I'm like, wow, I really do say a lot of random stuff, you know, and I get why movies have scripts, so that way people have perfect, complete sentences. But in reality, a movie is not real. These videos are real. This is the window into my malfunctioning brain. Okay. So thank you very much for the feedback though, because I always grow from feedback, and I will try to better the way that I educate people, or potentially how my brain operates. Let me see what else we got going on in here. There we go. Semantics, Jason Johnson says. Piston, TXV, poop on the roof. It's all the same. That's a very, very good point, you know. All right, so let's see what else. What else am I missing here? The other half. Okay. Okay. Someone had asked me how I like using the key to therm temp plus defrost controllers on the walk-in cooler evaporators. Key to therm is a temperature controller manufacturer that has built-in defrost on their temperature controllers. I've been using them here and more. They're pretty cool. I like them. It's still a little new to me, the whole digital defrost. And one of the main reasons why I don't care for the digital defrost built into those temperature controllers is oftentimes in restaurants, people abuse their equipment. They don't shut doors. You guys see how many times I make videos about iced up walk-in coolers and freezers. I'm literally a professional ice melter. That is my job, okay? 90% of my job is melting ice and not being an idiot while I'm doing so, dragging my hose, just trying to be nice to the customer. But that happens because the customers prop their doors open. Okay. So, a lot of my business is literally just going out and de-icing things because the customer left the door open. We're humans. We make mistakes. We're flawed. Right. And these restaurant cooks typically aren't paid to care, right? They're paid to put together some slop and throw it on a dish and sell it. I mean, pretty much. Okay. So, with that being said, one of the things that I don't like about digital defrost is, for the most part, with the key to therm, with the A419, with a Dixel, with whatever, a Corel, is you typically have a defrost duration that you use for every defrost. And it's typically consistent for the most part, right? So if you set a 15-minute long defrost, you typically can't say that in the middle of the night, I want to do a 3-hour defrost, okay, and then do 15 minutes throughout the day. Because if I have a mechanical defrost clock on a walk-in cooler, typically what I'm doing, or a cook's reaching or something like that, is in the middle of the night when the restaurant's not there, I'm going to run some longer defrost, maybe a 45-minute defrost, because nobody's there. The door's shut, right? We're going to help to get rid of any of that ice. So one of the downsides to using the temperature controllers that have built-in defrost is you typically can't do the long defrost in the middle of the night. So that's one thing that I don't like about them. Other than that, I kind of dig having the digital control, of course. So you can mount it on the front of the coil sometimes in certain situations. That way the customer has a view of the temperature in the box. They can see when it's in defrost. I like that kind of stuff. If the sensing bulb fails, you don't have to change the whole control. You just change the sensor on it for the most part. So those are cool, right? So I dig that. In a recent video, KE2 is multi-use, different models. Basic is temp plus air defrost or electric defrost. That's right. And then they have rack controllers. They have environment controllers. They have controls that do all kinds of things. Okay. So they are a controls company is what they are. They make all kinds of different stuff. And some of their higher end controllers are really nice. If you go check out, I'm pretty sure Brett Wetzel from Advanced Refrigeration Podcast has some cool stuff. And I think he made a trainer with some of the KE2 evap efficiency controllers and stuff so he can simulate different things. Because if you guys don't know, Brett Wetzel, Kevin Compass from the Advanced Refrigeration Podcast. Kevin is like a crazy smart startup tech for a company in the Midwest. And Brett is a training manager for a very, very large company in the South. And Brett travels all over the place training people. Kevin travels all over the place doing startups. And those two guys that run that podcast together, they have some great, great content. And the way that their brain works is really awesome too, right? Because we're all different, right? I have a unique way. They have a unique way. It's really cool to watch them go through their process and explain things. So the cool thing about these times right now is we have so much content at our fingertips. So we just got to look for it. In a video a while back, I talked about changing an evaporator coil in a carrier package unit because it had a plugged up metering device. And someone had emailed me or commented saying, did you really just say that you changed an evaporator because the metering device was plugged up? And I said, yeah, I did. But I'm not talking about a simple TXV. On majority of the carrier package unit equipments in my area, we have fixed orifice actuator style metering devices. Okay. I'll have to show it maybe on the overtime show next week, because I don't have my props. Let me look just to make sure. Yeah, I don't. No, I have a cutaway of a fixed orifice metering device on a carrier, like the actuator style. And it's actually a double orifice. And that's what people don't understand is that there's a piece of, let's just say 3-inch pipe that's 4 inches long. And there's 2 fixed orifices. They're not pistons. They're fixed in there orifices. So it has to travel through one orifice, then it goes into a chamber, then it travels through another orifice. If you have a plugged up orifice, how in the heck are you ever going to clean that? Because if you blow from one side, you blow it into that chamber. And if you blow from the other side, you blow it into that chamber. And because of that chamber that's in there, the little area, there's going to be a pressure drop when you're going to have high pressure on one side, and then it's going to go through the chamber and then go to a lower pressure and then go through the chamber and go to a lower pressure. Every time it drops down, you're going to get less pressure pushing whatever that contaminant through the system is. So if you have a bad enough restriction on one of those actuator metering devices, you're either going to change the entire actuator or you're going to change the entire evaporator. And I actually have a change out that I haven't done yet, but we're getting ready to do, where I'm going to be doing a very, very big evaporator change out because of plugged up metering devices. Okay. I've even had videos where I tried to clear a metering device using a torch. I never had very much success. I've watched lots of other people have videos, but nobody's ever had, yes, that worked perfect. It's always been, well, it's better than it was, right? That's usually what you hear in the videos. You never hear anybody say, see, problem solved, perfect. No, because we're not really clearing them. We're just doing what we can to kind of limp the equipment along. But if you have a plugged up actuator metering device on a header, like on a carrier or a train unit, if it gets really restricted, it's done. It needs to be changed. So let's see what else we got in here. What's a good sunscreen for this trade? You keep getting sunburns. Oxnard Shore 805. I hate sunscreen. I prefer not to ever wear sunscreen. I wear long Dickies shirts. I have a neck like scarf that I put on, a head scarf, and then a big sun hat. So I don't wear sunscreen personally. I hate the stuff. Yeah, actuators suck. Yep. Let's see. You got to stop standing up. Alaska is getting all hot and bothered by that stuff. Let's see. Just get the TXV kit. Yeah, Jason Johnson. I have never seen a TXV kit for a carrier. Never. I've seen and heard about TXV kits for Lennet or for train, but never. I've seen people make their own TXV for a carrier. But I've never seen the actual kit for any of the ones that I've worked on. I've asked to, and they're like, no, they don't even know what they're talking about when I say that. Jason Johnson, he's gotten them unplugged. I'll have to show you. I'll show you on Friday, dude, what those orifices look like. I know it seems better, man, but I don't know. I mean, maybe if it was just one piece of something, but if it was sludge and stuff, man, there's almost no way to completely get it out of that thing. I've never had luck with it. So, your door is ajar. Your door is ajar. That's right. That would be the door, the Toyota bell. Let me see what else. How long should it be until a unit is replaced? Your home AC is from 1995 and is pretty beat down. Moatio? I don't know if I butchered your name, bud. Moato? I apologize if I butchered your name. Okay, so how long should a unit last? Well, I mean, once you get past 20 years, I would argue that you're kind of on borrowed time, and efficiency from 20 years ago has probably gotten better. But does that necessarily mean you have to change it? No. Okay. You can repair equipment, and I will say right now, it might be a little bit more difficult to get new equipment. But if your unit is from 95, it's time to really start considering it, because if you have any major repairs, it's probably going to be time to replace it. Do you have to replace it? Not necessarily. It's just about how much money you want to spend, okay? But understand that newer equipment is going to be higher efficiency, but also with higher efficiency, you run into more electronics, more circuit boards, more components that we can't just, ooh, that's not working. Ooh, that's working. We can't just feel and push anymore. We now have a logic board that's doing all kinds of calculations, and we're like, how does that work? So the more high efficient, the more it's going to take a skilled tech to actually work on it, ironically, because some people think, oh yeah, it's got all these boards, I don't even need to know what I'm doing to do. Yeah, you actually do when you really want to get down to the nitty gritty. So I think it's time, though, that you start considering a replacement before it becomes an emergency situation. So Brooke had asked me a really good question. Why in the world, when I'm doing an evacuation, am I using my 3/4 inch inside diameter blue vac hoses? And he has a really, really good question. And I had the same question. What is the point? Because you're still restricting it down to a 1/4 inch refrigeration line connection when you hook up to the system. So what is the point of having one tiny restriction instead of one really long restriction? If you use a 1/4 inch diameter hose, the inside diameter is actually less than a 1/4 of an inch. Don't know why they call them 1/4 inches, okay? It's actually less than a 1/4 of an inch, but it's a long diameter. Oftentimes we'll have 6-foot hoses, maybe 4-foot hoses, okay? If you have a fixed restriction on a long hose, it gets harder and harder to move that fluid, that refrigerant through that hose. So even though it seems illogical, having a step down to a single 1/4 inch connection with a 3/4 inch hose is in fact actually going to speed up the evacuation process tenfold, tremendously. It's not even a joke how fast it goes. There's other things that can cause restrictions too. Take a water hose, okay? Really simple. Take a water hose, a garden hose from your house. Take that garden hose, 25 foot long, and try to drink water through that garden hose while it's hooked up to a pool, okay? It's going to be very difficult when it's 25 feet long, but you cut it down to about 6 inches long and you try to drink that water, it's going to be easier, okay? Simply because we're trying to pass through that same length. I know there's some technical terms about it, but basically, even though it seems illogical that you're still going through a 1/4 inch connection, you are speeding up the system tremendously. What I would highly suggest is, where's it at? Well, I can't find it, but Evacuation. What the heck is the Evacuation book from Jim Bergman? I don't know where it is. What is it? Yeah, I don't know where it is, but Jim Bergman and Brian Orr co-authored or co-revised Evacuation book. For the life of me, I can't think of the name of it, but it really goes in depth explaining how that process works. So let's see what else. What is your favorite HVAC part or term that sounds dirtier than it is? That's a good question, Laska. What is your favorite HVAC term that sounds dirtier than it is? Dikes. Dikes, that's an easy one, right? Everybody know what dikes are? They're diagonal cutters, wire cutters, but the term is dike. There's no reason as to why they're called dikes. It's just an electrical term, but it's one that sounds dirtier than it is for sure. So, orifice, yeah, I guess so. Let me see what else we got going on in here. Peckerhead, yeah, there you go. So there's all kinds of them, all right? All right, everybody, it is time for me to wrap this up. I've been going for almost an hour and a half, so I really do appreciate you all. Thank you, everybody, for all the support. You guys are super awesome. If you don't mind, share my content with anybody that you know might be interested, any group that you think might be interested. Share the content, help the channel grow. I really do appreciate you all. What I'm going to do at this point is make sure you guys, any questions, shoot me an email to hvacrvideos@gmail.com. And let me go ahead and transition the outro music. And I really do appreciate you. Remember, I go live on the HVAC Overtime YouTube channel, usually Friday evenings about 6:05 p.m. Pacific with my buddies, work permitting. And we usually cover a lot more topics, more entertainment value, a little bit of education, more entertainment. So check it out. Hope to see you there on Friday. Other than that, we will catch you on the next one, okay?